Hi, I'm Danny Brown. I'm the CEO of Myriad Real Estate Group, and this is our September market update. So we're officially into fall. You wouldn't know that by the temperatures in Phoenix. September for me is my least favorite month of the year. You start seeing all the ads for pumpkin spice latte and people wearing sweaters, and it's still 110 here. So we start to see an increase in listing activity, so sellers coming back to the market. Our winter visitors return to Phoenix kind of starting in October. So our 55 plus communities start to see more activity, and we do see an uptick in listings in the fall. Conversely, we also see an uptick in buyer activity as well. The thought for a lot of people that is wrong is that you see a lot of sales happen prior to the start of school, when in reality it is actually after the start of school. It is really hard to do stuff when your kids are not in school, and you got to take them around with you. Seeing homes with little ones is super challenging because they get bored really quick and they want to touch everything. So a lot of parents wait until after school starts to start viewing homes again. So I think that we are definitely going to see an uptick in activity as we get into the fall. Inventory is looking pretty good. It has stalled out from the summer, so we saw our peak a couple of months ago, and since then it has slowly been decreasing. A lot of that has to do with cancellations. So sellers not getting the pricing that they want and just deciding, like, I'm not forced to sell. If I'm not going to get my price, I'm just going to pull it from the market and we'll try again later. So we are seeing a lot more cancellations than we normally do. And again, just not a lot of people listing their home in those triple digit temperatures. But I do think that we will start to see an increase in that inventory as we get further into the fall. But we're still above 20,000 active listings on the market, which is a lot to choose from for buyers. The balance in supply and demand kind of depends on the city that you're in. There's like 6 cities that are technically in a seller's market, 7 cities that are in a buyer's market, and then a handful that are in a balanced market. So more, across, if we're just looking at averages, the market's pretty balanced all in all. If you're like a townhome or condo and you're a lower price point, that's really difficult. That's actually the hardest product to sell right now, are cheap condos and townhomes. There are not a lot of buyers for those, so the days on market for those types of homes are extremely long because the demand for those properties is really, really low. So it really is kind of product specific, city specific as well, on what type of market you're in here in Phoenix. But for the most part, it is relatively balanced. The biggest news is that mortgage rates are at the lows for the year. So we have seen a steady downward trend in the 10-year Treasury, which is where mortgage rates are based off of. And the spread between that rate and mortgage rates has narrowed and is very much getting back to normal. So the Fed hasn't done anything yet, and we are already at the lows for 2025 for mortgage rates. And I think that finally, we've seen a lot of false starts over the last couple of years, but I think finally we are going to start to stay at these lower rates with some duration. And right now, somebody with a great credit score, nice down payments, they're in the 5s. On a 30-year fixed. If you're FHA, you're in the 5s. If you're VA, you're in the 5s. So almost all the mortgage rates are in the 5s. If you've got, okay credit and a lower down payment, you're still in the low 6s. So we're in a very good spot, and I think that that is going to hold with some duration as we go through the fall, and then especially as we get into the spring. So the reason for this, and the Fed hasn't even done anything yet, is we've had some back-to-back terrible jobs reports, revisions from job reports that came in that weren't as good as we thought they were. So that is all leading to the Fed going to be cutting rates this month. Right now on the table is definitely 25 basis points cut. But now they're starting to even talk about a 50 basis point cut. And what's getting priced in already are several cuts before the end of the year, and then additional cuts as we get into the spring. So that's why mortgage rates are coming down now, is because it's operating in advance of these rate cuts. So if you're somebody that is waiting for lower rates, it's happening now. It's not going to happen after they do the cuts. The market is always operating like 6 months ahead of what's happening in real life. And so those rates are already coming down on the bet that the Fed is going to cut rates. This means that if you are a buyer, that your window of opportunity is now officially closing. If all of this plays out the way that I'm predicting, the first thing that's going to go as demand starts to increase, buyers are going to return to the market because things become more affordable. We have seen this and it's proven out multiple times. As I said before, we've gotten these false starts where rates have gotten into the high 5s, low 6s. We always see buyers return when we get to that number. So I think that's going to happen again. So an increase in demand while supply remains relatively level, that is going to cause sellers to pull back on concessions. They're not going to have to negotiate on price as much. I do not think we're in a market where we're going to start to see home values take off again because fortunately we have inventory to choose from. But sellers will not have to give you as much as they have been. So if you're somebody that is wanting those closing costs, that you're wanting the seller to make repairs and you're wanting to negotiate and get a good deal, that window of time is, I think, officially starting to close as these rates come down and stay lower with that duration. So what can sellers expect? Well, if you are on the market now, you are still going to have to be in a position where you're negotiating. You are still going to be needing to put out a really good product, right? For me, I love alliteration, so it comes to price, presentation, and patience in this market. We are 6 months ahead of what I think will become a seller's market. So if you're somebody that is planning to list in the springtime, then I think that the market will have improved and you're sitting in a really good spot. If you're active on the market now or planning on lists now, I don't think that it's going to change that much to where you should wait necessarily. So if you're ready to sell, go ahead and sell. But you do have to put out a good product. You do have to be willing to negotiate and help buyers cover some closing costs. You're going to have to do repairs because, again, buyers have choices. They're going to have choices in the spring as well, and they're willing to pay the prices. They're finally getting the rates, but they're wanting a good product. So as a seller, you can't list your trash. You still have to put something nice out there. As we get closer to the end of the year, the things to pay attention to are going to continue to be the jobs report. I think the Trump administration has given up on trying to fire Jerome Powell. I think they realize they can't, but now they are attacking individual Fed chairs. They are looking for any reason to go after them. They are targeting one right now, and I do think she's going to end up resigning because they want to put in their own people. And the more they can stack the Fed chairs in their favor, the more likelihood they're going to get these rate cuts and large rate cuts. So that is all going to lead towards lower mortgage rates, and it's all being telegraphed. Like, we can see it. And the Fed chair is going to be replaced in May, so he's on a short timeline already. So I think that there's going to be a lot of changes that are happening, and that is all going to result in lower mortgage rates. So again, this is where we're in that unique time where you can get a house, you can negotiate, and once you already have it, and I know realtors and lenders have said this for like several years, that you can get the home, get it locked in, and then refinance later. I actually think that we're at that point now where you can expect to refinance, in 2026. With all that being said, I do not think that we're in an environment where we're going to see mortgage rates dip into the 4s or even the low 5s. We would have to enter into a recession for some of that to take place. But I do think that we are going to get into that mid to high 5 range, and that's really all we need to make the housing market a lot more functional and just get back to kind of normal. So if you're somebody that is waiting for the 3s and the 4s, you're going to be waiting forever. I just don't see that happening. I don't think that we're going to get that easy of monetary policy, that we're going to see those 3 to 4% mortgage rates for quite some time. That, or we're in a pretty deep recession to get rates down there. So mid 5s is what we're shooting for. We are on our way there, and I think we will achieve that come 2026. If you have any questions about the housing market, where interest rates are going, definitely leave them in the comments. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe, and I will see you next month.